Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our CCK Live discussion. My name is Maura Clancy. I'm an attorney at CCK, and I'm joined today by Michelle Dettori and Elise Phillips, also of CCK. Today, we're going to be discussing VA benefits for dependents. We do have a number of topics that are sort of broken down into groups because there are a lot of different benefits that dependents of veterans should be aware of. And we're going to try to go through the general eligibility requirements for those different benefits. We do have several resources on our website. So I'm going to start, and we'll probably say this multiple times, by referring you to our website at cck-law.com. We also have the ability to answer any questions that you might have. So if you'd like to reach out to us with any questions about our discussion today, please feel free to do so by leaving a comment or otherwise getting in touch with us through the website. So without further ado, Michelle, can we please have some information from you about what a dependent is and who would qualify as a dependent for the purposes of the type of benefits we're talking about today?
Yeah, so one of the most common benefits is for dependents, and it is dependency benefits. So for veterans rated at 30% or more, they're entitled to dependency benefits for a spouse. In some states, because they recognize common law marriage, you can have a common law marriage, get dependency for that person. You can also get them for children under the age of 18, adopted children, children that are 18 to 23 and in school. And then you can also get it for children that are disabled or became disabled before their 18th birthday. So that's typically, adding an additional amount to your monthly compensation. It's paid differently depending on which type of dependent it is. So you would see a little bit of a variation with it, but that's the most standard dependency that we see usually.
And I think it's worth noting too, Michelle, that although we're going to be talking about a lot of different specifics, so different types of programs for dependents, different types of benefits, it's important to note the initial threshold. So for compensation purposes, if a veteran is receiving a 30% disability rating, that will entitle the veteran for dependency benefits if the veteran has eligible dependents. Elise, we wanted to talk about healthcare and insurance benefits because healthcare benefits are things that can extend not just to veterans, but also to eligible dependents. So can you lead us through some of the different programs that are available?
Yes, so there's a few different types of healthcare and insurance programs available to families of military members. The first one to talk about is TRICARE. That is offered through the DOD, and it's available to family members of both active duty service members as well as current National Guard and Reserve members. It's also available to family members of retired and deceased service members from all of those branches. This is really a comprehensive healthcare program, so it's health coverage. It includes healthcare plans, prescriptions, dental plans, and special need assistance. So again, that's TRICARE. And for more information on that, I'm going to direct you to tricare.mil.mil, just because it is complex as far as what benefits you are entitled to. It depends on what your beneficiary category is. So if you visit that website, we will link it down below in the comment section, but that will give you some more information about your specific eligibility. The next we're going to talk about is CHAMPVA, or Civilian Health and Medical Program of the Department of Veterans Affairs. So that's from the VA as opposed to the DOD. So if you don't qualify for TRICARE, you may qualify for this program. This is more specifically for dependents of veterans who are permanently and totally disabled. And that includes whether a veteran is living or has passed away, or dependents of deceased veterans that died due to a service-connected disability. This is going to cover things such as emergency services, inpatient medical care, as well as prescriptions and other benefits. Again, we're going to link information about this program down below because just like with TRICARE, your eligibility is going to change depending on what your specific circumstance is. And then there's some other healthcare programs out there. Basically, those are going to exist for families, for veterans that were exposed to certain toxins. There's a Camp Lejeune family member program. There's a Spina Bifida healthcare benefits program. And there's also the Children's of Women Vietnam Veterans Healthcare Benefits Program. So again, we'll include information on all of those below, but there are other healthcare programs out there other than just the two that we discussed today.
Great. One program that we definitely wanted to specifically mention today was the Survivors and Dependents Educational Assistance Benefit. So we refer to this as DEA benefits. DEA benefits are part of the GI Bill that offers special benefits for education programs for dependents of veterans. So assuming that a veteran has an eligible dependent, which were the types of persons that Michelle talked about when we first started the discussion today, then VA might decide that the veteran, because of their service-connected conditions, is eligible for DEA for the veteran's dependents. So the type of educational programs that are covered by the DEA benefit, if a veteran is eligible, include schooling, college courses, university courses, tutorial assistance, which is actually interesting. I didn't know that before today's discussion. There's a lot of other certification programs, job training programs, work study, a lot of different types of education. So it's not just college, it's not just formal college courses or even high school courses. There's a lot of different ways that the DEA benefit can extend to an eligible dependent. The way that veterans become eligible for DEA benefits for their dependents, one of the primary ways that we see veterans becoming eligible is if they're rated as permanently and totally disabled. So we typically see this in cases where the veteran has a scheduler 100% rating and has also been deemed permanently and totally disabled by the VA. We also see this circumstance if a veteran has been granted TDIU or total disability based on individual unemployability. If the veteran has that rating and also VA has determined that their conditions are permanent and total in nature, then VA will usually just find that the veteran is also entitled to DEA. That being said, if the veteran would like to seek DEA benefits, there is a specific VA form, the 22-5490. Again, we usually see VA get this correctly if the veteran is otherwise eligible for DEA benefits, but that is the operative form if you need to file one or think you might be entitled to something that you're not already getting. Other additional ways that veterans can get the DEA benefit, so in other words, ways that dependents become entitled to the benefit through the veteran, is if the veteran passes away due to a service-connected condition, or if the veteran passes away on active duty, or if the veteran is rated as permanently and totally disabled at the time of their death. It doesn't matter what the cause of their death was, just that they were permanently and totally disabled at that time. So there are a number of different limitations on the use of the benefit. So one of the questions that we get is, what span of time is the benefit active for? So can a dependent just take advantage of the benefit at any time? And that kind of depends on when they begin to use it, if there are any gaps in schooling or educational programs. Generally speaking, the benefit will cover up to about 45 months of education, but you should definitely refer to VA's website or our website where we have included all of those criteria as to how long the benefit is actually available for the dependent. Michelle, I want to come back to you to talk about VA's program for comprehensive assistance for family caregivers. Can you talk about what that program offers and what the eligibility requirements are?
Sure. So the Caregiver Program essentially provides support to caregivers of disabled veterans. So if this is something you want to be interested in filing for, you can actually apply online through caregiver.va.gov. There's a form on there, which you can do by mail too, but they actually give you the option to do it through the website. It's 10-10CG. You can also apply online, but obviously with the current pandemic right now, most VA regional offices are not available for walk-ins, so your primary options would be either mailing it or doing it online. So how are you eligible for the program? So you have to be a veteran, and that you have to be at least 70% service-connected with a disability rating. You need to need personal care for at least 6 months, so you have an inability to perform your activities of daily living. you need supervision or protection, or basically you need someone to help you maintain safe from the hazards or dangers of the daily living. You could currently receive at-home care, or with the help of this program, which this is something I do like, is with the help of this program, you will receive it. So I think it's good that it doesn't eliminate the fact that somebody maybe can't afford yet to provide the care, but if they were awarded this benefit, they might be able to. So the good thing with this also was, until recently, it was only available to veterans from September 11th, 2001 to the present. But now, as of this year, it's going to be opened back up to veterans that are from May 7th, 1975 and after. I will say they are phasing in some of the periods. Right now, I believe they're starting with the 1975 and they'll move on from there. So who is an eligible caregiver? So it's the same dependency we were talking about in the beginning, which is your child. However, your child has to be, for this category, 18 years old. So a child, a spouse, a parent. So this gets a little more broad in the fact that it can be a step family member, extended family, or someone that lives with the veteran full-time or is willing to be a designated caregiver. So this actually doesn't need to be a family member. So it does open up who could be eligible for it beyond just dependents of a veteran. So what does the Act actually give somebody? It gives them education and training. So we'll go through a kind of a program to make sure that you can become and successfully become a caregiver for somebody, and give you the education you might need in order to be a caregiver. There's a monthly stipend. The stipend, there's 2 different levels depending on how disabled VA believes a veteran might be. When I was looking at the numbers, it looks like it's really anywhere from about $1,700 to about $2,800 a month. So it's a good amount of money to help provide care to somebody. I think VA pays it based on a certain level of VA employee. So they kind of almost consider you're not that you are, but it's almost like you're considered getting employment benefits almost. They also pay travel, lodging, and financial assistance for traveling to receive care for the veteran. You also get access to CHAMPVA, which Elise was referencing earlier, if you don't otherwise have healthcare through VA. Mental health services and counseling for caregivers, because a lot of times it's, when a veteran is disabled, it's not only taxing on the veteran, but sometimes as well on the caregiver. So it does give some counseling and support groups for you. Up to 30 days of respite care as well is given. So there are a few different things that come along with the program on top of the monthly stipend. Like I said, a good website to go to is the caregiver.va.com. They actually have a lot of, frequently asked questions. They have some brochures on it. So I believe it's a very good place to go if you want some additional information on it, and especially to see if you might be eligible for it.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. I think it's important to note, like you said before, that this program was only open to a certain class of veterans from a certain era. So I think you mentioned, Michelle, it was 2001 and forward. That was sort of recent. I remember us talking about that on other videos in the past, but now it's nice to know that it's been opened up much farther into the past. So it's now serving more veterans, which is great that it's available for more people now. Elise, we want to turn it to you and talk about dependency and indemnity compensation. So what is that? It's not exactly an intuitive title. And how might veterans be eligible for it, or their dependents, more importantly, be eligible for that benefit?
Sure. So DIC, it's a tax-free monthly paid benefit to a surviving spouse, surviving children, and even sometimes parents of a veteran. Most typically, this is someone who has died related to military service or a service-connected condition. So to be eligible for this benefit, both the veteran who has passed away and the recipient need to meet certain qualifications. As far as the veteran, it needs to be, like I had just referenced, a service member that either died while on active duty training, or inactive duty training, or a veteran that died due to a service-connected condition. Or even if they didn't die from a service-connected condition, you can still be eligible if you do receive VA compensation that meets either schedularly or based on TDIU, a 100% rating. But I will say for that, it's not anyone who has a 100% rating. You you have to have had that 100% rating for at least 10 years before death. Or there's some other qualifications, or if you had it since released 100% since release of active duty and at least 5 years immediately before death. Or another limited category is if you have had a 100% rating for 1 year, but if you were a former POW who died after September 30th, 1999. So we're going to link below those specific qualifications, as I know, they are pretty specific. Actually, on our website, we do have a nice flow chart that makes it pretty easy to understand which veterans are eligible. And then on the side of the beneficiary spouses, there are also certain qualifications for that. Again, we're going to link that down below because there are several different qualifications, but generally spouses are eligible. And even if you are actually not currently married, you can still potentially be eligible so long as you're not currently remarried. So again, we'll link that below. As far as children, most basically it has to be someone who is under the age of 18 or under the age of 23 if they're attending school still. And parents are also eligible if they are biological, adoptive, or a foster parent. So unlike what we were talking about before, here you do have to be related to either legally or biologically to obtain this benefit. So like I said, we're going to link that down below for the more specifics as some of the more complicated qualifications, but generally it is something that is available to surviving spouses, children, and parents.
Great. And something that goes hand in hand with DIC or dependency and indemnity compensation, that's what I get for trying to say the whole phrase, is accrued benefit. So we see in our practice, if one of our clients is a veteran and the veteran happens to pass away, what we start to think about is whether there is a case to make for DIC, as Elise was just describing, or whether there's something that we can do for any surviving dependent of the veteran. And we call that separate class of benefits accrued benefits. So what are accrued benefits? Accrued benefits are benefits that would have been paid to the veteran had they survived, and they would be benefits that would be due and owing to the veteran stemming from a pending claim or appeal. So if the veteran had filed a claim for benefits, let's just say the veteran filed a claim for service connection for a traumatic brain injury prior to their death, and that claim remains open and pending. Maybe the veteran received a denial and timely appealed it. While that appeal is pending, if the veteran passes away, an eligible dependent has the chance to be substituted into the veteran's appeal that was pending at the time of death. This has to be done within a year of the veteran's death. It's not an open-ended thing. VA is not going to hold cases open indefinitely in case someone decides that they would like to take advantage of the fact that the veteran had a pending appeal at the time of their death. But if within a year an eligible survivor makes a claim for accrued benefits or specifically asks VA to continue on adjudicating the claim or appeal that was pending when the veteran passed away, then this person can be substituted and can basically serve as the appellant or the claimant. There are some limitations on what a substitute can receive if the claim is eventually granted. So in that instance I mentioned, say the VA decides that service connection was warranted for the veteran's traumatic brain injury, the eligible survivor can receive the retroactive award that would have been paid to the veteran, just no future benefits that the veteran might have gotten. So say they rated the veteran at 100%, the survivor is not going to be able to get the 100% payments monthly going forward like the veteran would have, but they would be able to get any accrued benefits. So anything that had sort of been piling up while the veteran was still alive and pursuing the claim or the appeal. The people that are eligible to make a claim for accrued benefits include a surviving spouse. After a surviving spouse, VA will receive claims for accrued benefits from dependent children. So as Elise mentioned before, if the child is under the age of 18, they're an eligible dependent, or if the child is between 18 and 23 years old and is attending school. And dependent parents are actually another class of persons that can be eligible for accrued benefits if they make the claim for accrued benefits within a year. It's just that if there's multiple dependent children and multiple dependent parents in either example, then the accrued benefits, should they be determined to be due and owing to the veteran, would be paid in shares. So they would have to be split among those parties. So this is something to be aware of if, in the very unfortunate circumstance, a veteran does pass away and you're trying to assess whether there's any ability to pick up sort of where the veteran had left off on a pending claim or appeal. We know that the VA can be very slow to adjudicate things. Things might be open and pending for several years. And so it's unfortunately pretty common that a veteran might pass away with something in a pending state. And so it's important to note that there are definitely circumstances under which a survivor can pick up with that appeal and can keep pursuing it. Again, we're going to refer to our website. We keep doing that because these requirements for these different types of benefits are very specific. They're not really intuitive or self-explanatory. So please feel free to access our website. I know we have a lot of information about both DIC and accrued benefits there for your reference. Michelle, something also a little bit similar, but in the pension world, so outside of the compensation benefits world, is the possibility of a survivor's pension. Can you talk to us about what that benefit is and who it might be available to?
Yeah, so this benefit is a tax-free needs-based program. It's for basically widows or children in a low-income household. And there are certain criteria for it. If we're talking about the same dependents we've been talking about throughout the process here. There's only one restriction for spouses that gets added here is you can't be remarried yet. But you can still be a child under the age of 18, a child 18 to 23 in school, and a child that became disabled before their 18th birthday. So this is one that is based on the veteran service. It's based on the fact that the veteran service couldn't be dishonorable. The veteran had to have active duty during a wartime period. VA considers wartime periods primarily to be World War II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. And then there's two different criteria for how long their period of service had to be. I think it's prior to 1980, it was 90 days of active duty. And then from 1980 on, it's 24 days of consecutive service, or that they fulfilled their active duty requirements. So how much time they were called upon to be active during that period. There are some restrictions that do apply. Again, we'll put the comments down below, the criteria for it. So it's just good to be mindful of that. So there are some factors VA does take into consideration. Obviously, your income matters, your property value matters, stock, stuff like that does matter. So based on all those variables, how much are you getting? It depends. It depends on, like I said, the income. It depends on how many dependents you have. It depends on, what you have for assets. It also depends if you yourself need aid and attendance because you need assistance with your activities of daily living. So then that amount becomes increased. So it's a lot of factors go into kind of establishing what the amount is, but it's there to be, it's there if you need it in a low income situation. And it doesn't require that the veteran have a condition that is already related to service. It just is based on the veteran's service and then your relationship to the veteran. How do you apply for it? You would submit a VA Form 21534 to VA. You can obtain the form online. You normally would be able to go in person. Obviously, right now, that's a little limited. So you'd want to likely just be submitting the form here. But this is another benefit that you do see. I think one thing to be mindful with this is that you can't get multiple types of benefits with some of these. Some of these cross each other out because this is a needs-based program. It's based on income. So if you're getting, like we talked about with Elise, DIC, the Dependency Indemnity Compensation, I'm going to do it too. It kind of cancels each other out because VA only goes by how much you can receive, and they do set a limit on it, which are, again, specific numbers and stuff like that we will put below.
Great. Elise, can you talk to us about burial benefits? This is something that we do get questions on quite a bit. So what sort of things are available through the burial benefits umbrella?
Sure. So that's one other thing that is available to surviving dependents is going to be burial benefits. There's two main associations that deal with these types of benefits. The first is going to be the VA, the Veterans Benefits System, and then the second is going to be the National Cemetery Administration. So we'll start with the second. The National Cemetery Administration, actually, what they do is they manage cemeteries where you can be buried as a veteran or as also a surviving spouse of a veteran. They really deal more with the actual burial, so the gravesite and things like the gravestone, whereas the Veterans Benefit System is going to be more of an actual compensation. So they'll be providing funds for burial. It's important to note that the National Cemetery Administration doesn't deal with actual funerals. Like I said, it's mostly just the gravesite. For eligibility, we're going to link that right down below, just because that is another trickier one. But it's good to know that both of those avenues are available to surviving dependents.
There are a couple of other sort of miscellaneous benefits that we just want to mention just for people's awareness and while we're talking about the topic. There are additional compensation benefits. I think we mentioned this in the beginning, but just a reminder, the most common type of dependency benefit that we see is the benefit that attaches when a veteran is rated at 30% or more for service-connected disability. So this is something that Michelle touched on. We've been talking a lot about what benefits are available when veterans are unfortunately deceased or when they are rated as permanently and totally disabled. But just as a reminder, veterans can receive dependency benefits as part of their regular monthly compensation if they are rated at 30% or more through the Veterans Benefits Administration. So that's definitely the most common type of dependency benefit that's probably out there, just because it's available to a lot of different veterans who have even just a 30% rating or higher. So just wanted to make sure that we were aware that the things that we're talking about are all in addition to that. There are also home loan opportunities through the VA. This is another thing that I wasn't actually super familiar with before today's discussion, but worth noting that there are certain home loans for veterans and their dependents if, unfortunately, the veteran is missing in action, a prisoner of war, or has passed away from a service-connected disability. So those home loan opportunities can extend to dependents in those circumstances. Or in addition, one more thing, if the veteran is rated as permanently and totally disabled, that's another way to qualify dependents for the home loan benefits. And I wanted to mention one more thing. I think I mentioned it in the discussion about accrued benefits. So those are the benefits that are available to dependents, if eligible dependents, if a veteran passes away but has a claim or appeal pending, and if there are benefits due and owing to the veteran at the time of their death. So substitution is something that can be a little bit confusing procedurally. If someone is seeking accrued benefits, what they have to do is basically ask VA to formally substitute them in to the claim or appeal that was pending at the time of the veteran's death. So what happens with substitution is that we often see, although not consistently, VA will send specific decisions that adjudicate the issue of substitution. So they might send you a decisional document that says that your request for substitution has been granted. That can create confusion because substitution on its own doesn't necessarily entitle anyone to an additional benefit. It just means that VA recognizes the person being substituted as an eligible dependent or an eligible substitute. So if your decision only talks about substitution, it may not be the case that you have succeeded on the accrued benefits claim that you had been pursuing. It doesn't automatically follow in every case that you are entitled to dependency and indemnity compensation either. So just something to be mindful of if you are receiving correspondence from the VA that references substitution. It's definitely important to be substituted in if you're pursuing an accrued benefits claim, but it doesn't always carry any type of monetary benefit with it, that issue alone. I want to turn it back to Michelle and Elise just to see if they have any closing thoughts or any advice for people that are watching today.
Sure. So one thing that we didn't really touch upon is when determining the way that someone died and if they died by a service-connected condition, what VA will do is they'll often look to the death certificate. So when you do get that death certificate, make sure it's a very challenging time, but take a look at it and make sure that it's complete. Make sure that it accurately describes the cause of death, because if it doesn't, you can actually get it amended by the doctor. It is really important that it's accurate, and especially if the veteran died of a service-connected condition, it's very important that that's reflected in the death certificate.
Yeah, I would say one thing that I think is important is we just talked about a whole bunch of different benefits, and it's complicated and it's complex in the fact that certain things make you required, certain things make you ineligible. It's always good to reach out to a representative, a service organization, attorney, and accredited practitioner, and have a conversation about what benefits you might be entitled to beyond compensation. And unfortunately, if a veteran does pass away, it is very good to also reach out to see what options you have available, whether, you could be, substituted in as a claimant and accrued benefits, whether you do have a claim for service connection for the cause of the veteran's death, whether you'd be entitled to pension benefits, whatever it may be. It's always good to find out what your options are, especially because there are all these programs out there to help people and help spouses of disabled veterans and dependents.
I totally agree with those points. And one thing that I would add, very similar to what you had said, Michelle, is to be aware of any specific forms that VA is asking for. We say this a lot, but I think in this context, it's particularly relevant that VA is very, very adherent to the forms that they use. So if you simply write into the VA and request a certain benefit, they're most likely going to get back to you and ask you to file the appropriate form. Sometimes they don't even give you all the information about what form is needed. So if your request is specific enough, they might figure out what it is that you're looking for and send you the forms to fill out. VA has all the forms on their website. I believe if you type in va.gov, don't quote me on this, but something like it's as simple as /forms. And either way, if you go on the va.gov website, you can find the PDFs for the documents that you might need to fill out. So I would just say if VA is asking you for a form, it's better to comply with that when you're looking for these very specific types of benefits that are available for dependents, just because they sometimes won't proceed without the correct form. So you don't want to assume that they're going to have to adjudicate your request if they're specifically saying that they don't have all the information that they need. Forms are critical across the board at VA, but I think, like I said, particularly in this context where there's a lot of very specific types of benefits that dependents can be seeking. That is all that we have today. Thank you all so much for joining us. Please feel free again to access any information on our website, cck-law.com, and we hope you all have a great day.